Hello and welcome to the Stampscapes Stamp Along. We're going to be doing a version of this really simple scene here. This is one of the, I don't know, kind of the most minimalist types of scenes that I've done before. But I think it's very effective and very conducive for the images that were utilized in this piece. Okay, so I have a list of all of the items I'll be using. In the description section, just click Show More under this video, and that section will expand and it goes into paper size, types of media, and all of the stamps we'll be using in this stamp along in that section, along with direct links in most cases here. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stamping on this piece of semi-gloss cardstock. You can use a matte cardstock, you can use a glossy cardstock, whatever you want. I'm going to be using some colored pencils on this though, so something like a glossy might be a little bit too sealed off to accept colored pencil marks, unless you have a really, really soft colored pencil. Okay. As far as the imagery goes, we can stamp them in, just stamp them in your favorite black ink, you know, it could be any type. I think I'm going to try the StazOn in this case. I'm usually going with dye-based inks, but I want to just go with something that's going to dry very quickly for me here. Okay, this is the Mystic Hills Left here. And this will be stamped on the lower left-hand side of the card. I'll have it going right off the bottom of the card, so just kind of aim it for, you know, that area. I'm going to stamp it a little bit over to the left here, and you can see that point right there is kind of coming in contact with it. If you stamp it a little bit farther, you know, right or left, it's not going to matter. Up or down, again, you know, not a crucial type of, positioning issue. Okay, so we have that right down there. I'm starting to become a kind of a little bit of a fan of StazOn ink. I didn't use it for many years just because, you know, you have to clean off your stamps pretty well after you use them. So I'll be doing that later. I just want to have this stamp along moving. If I ever go too fast for you here, let's see, I don't think I need this block again for the scene. Just pause the video if I'm moving too fast. All right, so that has been stamped there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stamp a right side element here. And the other one, in this one right here, I used the Mystic Hills right, okay? But just to vary it a little bit, sometimes I don't like doing the exact same thing over and over again. I'm going to use the Mystic Hidden House, okay? Is that the name of it? I don't remember. Okay. With this one right here, just kind of, you know, get it lined up. Stamp it out before you do it, too, just to make sure you have it positioned where it's not kind of skewed. See how this kind of goes up there? Don't line this up straight like that, otherwise it'll be crooked, okay? But this is how it goes, like this, with that shoreline kind of going up in perspective, okay? And you can see I have this part kind of hanging off here, so I don't know if I'm not really planning on stamping the whole thing. The images kind of always hang off the edge of my cards. Okay, and we'll go about, I would say this is roughly, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches up. Maybe you can point that to this, you know, part of the tree line or something of that sort in terms of your positioning. Again, if you stamp it up a little bit higher, lower, not going to matter. There's a tolerance of like, I don't know, a big tolerance, you know, 3/4 of an inch or something like that, just as long as you have it within that space, okay? All right. Hidden House. Now let's see. Let's use the same block here. Now this one's going to be a little bit too small for my Mystic Hills Left, okay? Now here's a little tip right here on this one. We're going to be stamping it over these trees, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to ink up like this. Here's one of those little tips right here that can make your scene kind of a little bit more dimensional in terms of space. and distance between objects right here. We have that inked up, but then just blot off some of this lower section. So I'm blotting off about a 1/2 inch to an inch off the bottom of that, okay? Now I might have removed a little bit too much ink. Sometimes with the stays on, I'm not used to it because I don't use it a lot, or I haven't in the past. And I'm going to blot off a little bit of these trees here where they're going into the water like that. Don't use kind of a, don't wipe it off completely, but wipe off, you know, a decent amount. But if you're using stays on ink, get it stamped pretty fast because it's drying on your pad, on your stamp, probably on the pad too if I don't put that lid back on. Drying on the stamp as, you know, right as you kind of wipe things off like that, okay? So see that right down there, it just gets a little bit lighter where it's overlapping this tree, okay? You know what I mean? If you don't do that, I don't know if it's, you know, it's not going to be a game changer or anything like that, okay? And let's go and we'll stamp our Mystic Mountain. I'm still learning my own stamp names here. Mystic Mountain or Mystic Hills. This one's the larger one. You can use the larger and smaller one, or you can just use the smaller one, whatever you have. I'm just going to use the larger one, but I'll go for a couple impressions of it. Okay, I think my stays on pad's getting a little dry. Okay, now here's one of those things too. I'm going to blot off a little bit off this bottom right here, just so it stamps out a little bit lighter, because what this is going to represent is the mountains kind of descending into a bank of fog or clouds, and that's what gives it that mystic type of feel to this genre of painting here, okay? Actually, I missed I don't know, I didn't stamp out right there, and that kind of, you know, is a little bit lighter. Hey, it's in the clouds or something like that. All right. All right, let's go for another impression. Let's throw it over here. I'm going to leave room on mine for a quote stamp, okay? So that's what I'm considering right here when I'm going for this impression. I don't want to stamp it too high because we still have our sun to add up in that section, okay? All right, so we have our mountains back there, and we're just about done with our compositional portion of this scene. Let's see. I was wondering if I should go for this quote stamp right now. Use whatever you have. You can go for a word stamp or something up here. I think that the word stamps animate the scene very nicely. Enhances it a little bit. Certainly you don't have to do that in traditional kind of ink paintings like that. There's no words up there. There's sometimes someone puts a chop or something like that up there, you know, with the signature. But I don't know. I think it makes a nice kind of graphic statement. Okay, now word stamps. I stamped them out a couple times just to get my kind of feel for, I get the feel for where to put my pressure, because on word stamps, letter forms, you want to have a good uniform application of that stamp like that. I stamp mine a little bit crooked, but I don't know, it's not too bad. Which happens, you know, quite often. Well, I don't know about quite often. I don't know, sometimes I don't get perfectly horizontal, but it's close enough. Okay, so here we have a 1-inch punch right here. You can go whatever size if you have a Cricut or something like that, where you can do any size of a round, I don't know, whatever stencil. You can go for it. And it'd be cool if you kind of, we can also mask off these mountains and put the sun coming up behind it too. But I'm just going to throw it right here. I'm just going to go real easy with this. Okay, now you can do this element with whatever you have, okay? You need probably, you know, if you have like sticker paper and you want to print out a red sun and just pop it right down there, you can. Or you can color something out. You can, I don't know, what You might, if you have some red paper, you can even take this hole punch and punch out a red sun and, be done with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some, dye-based ink here, and what we'll do is we'll go for a varied split fountain sun. I just think this scene is so minimal in terms of, the colors, because it's mostly grayscale, of course. But I think having a little bit of a variation within our colored element, I don't know, it's nice to have that. Okay, I'm going to put this underneath here a little bit, because sometimes I color above that and I get onto my card. I'll be a little bit more careful this time, given that we're in a stamp along here. But what I'm going to do on this little template here is I'm inking up. I'm using a paper towel. You can use whatever you have for your ink applications, ink blending tools. And I'm going to go in here and we will color our sun like that, okay? And get a good application of that yellow in there. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going with orange, okay? Now, here's my thing that I've been doing. I've been adding a little bit too much orange because that's very wet, so your application of ink is going to go a lot farther because it's fairly wet right here, so we're going wet into wet. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do on this one. I'm going to put the brakes on this one a little bit more. Maybe I'll blot it off even. That's a lot of orange right there, okay? And see, I'm staying in that one area a little bit longer. So I'm getting a drier application of this orange like this. And then I'm going down here. Try not to just make it all orange. But see that little bit of yellow down there? But see, it's kind of going from darker to lighter. I didn't transition it really great right around that yellow, but there we go. So it's going, there's a little bit of a range right there. And then here's our darkest red. It's not even that dark, but let's just test it out here. Okay, so this red, I'll put it up here. I'll be very delicate with it, just so I don't cover, make the whole thing one big red sun, which wouldn't look bad. Like I said, you can do it, cut it out of a piece of paper too, and just one uniform red tone, like a graphic element. But hopefully you can see that the range of red, orange, and yellow like that. So when in that red one, I was just dabbing it around as opposed to streaking it because there's a lot of ink on this at this point in time. All right. And that is our colored element right there, okay? I think that looks pretty cool like that. Okay, but the rest of the scene right now is looking rather anemic in relation to that split fountain, varied color sun up there. So we need to bring in, we're going to kind of bring, I don't know, kind of the focus to that even more so than it is, but give body to all of our other elements here. Now we have a little fishing boat. Let's go ahead and stamp that out right now. You can put whatever you have down here, but I'm going to use the sailboat here. The fishing boat with sail, I should say. Okay, let me just do a test print here. Okay. And we'll stamp it. Just make sure you didn't stamp it like right in the trees or something like that, and you should be fine. Okay, don't wiggle your stamp. Nice even pressure. And we have our little sailboat right there, okay? All right, now on this scene right here, I was going for this kind of watercolory type of look, but let's simplify this even more. I do love the watercolored pencil up here. I mean, it doesn't make for like a complicated process, but let's go for like ultra simplicity here, okay? Most of you have colored pencils, and maybe you don't have a set, but maybe you have a black colored pencil. It's one of the most basic colors, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to add mass and lighting to the mountains here. Now, normally, if I'm doing a colored scene, I have the tops of my mountains a little bit lighter, reflecting some of the colors of our light source. But in these types of, I don't know, this genre of painting, okay, the light is really in the cloudy areas at the base of things. land masses, okay? So it's kind of coming from below. I do have some shadow work down here. You can see where I have some of that white pigment ink. See, even the base of this little fishing boat is a little bit lighter. Okay, so that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to take our colored pencil. Now, don't go real heavy-handed with this, okay? Just take it, and you're doing just a light application of it. And what you're going to want to do, our goal here, is to kind of create a range of tones. Here you can practice on your value ranges, okay? And it will go from darker up top, and then as you move this, you're just kind of pressing lighter, okay? So you get a lighter application of this given hue. So we're using black, but we're really using it to achieve variations of gray. Okay, now I'm going to go darker, but I'm going to start off with this lighter amount because I can always adjust and add more tone later, okay? I just want to bring everything kind of into focus roughly at the same time, not do that to completion, then come over here to completion, do that to completion. I'm talking about shading. Because when you do it that way, sometimes by the time you get into these other areas like that, there isn't kind of a consistency to it than if you're doing kind of the overall at the same time, okay? Now, if you've been using something like colored pencils for a long time, maybe you are consistent, but I haven't been, so using colored pencils for a long time. So I am just going to take it really slow and kind of establish my lighting scheme so the whole top range of that is a little bit lighter like that. You might notice I kind of go back and forth. I wouldn't call this cross hatching, but I use different directions with my pencil in whatever way is conducive for coloring that form, okay? So on this slope right here, this just makes for a nice, comfortable application right there on these sloping areas. If I'm going this, I turn my page and I'm coloring like this. So it's like I'm I turn my card as opposed to just turning my hand every which way, okay? All right, that's the background hills. Like I said, I'll go in there with a little bit more, but let's do these midground hills in here now. It's going against my kind of long established methodology. Like I said, I would normally have this top part a little bit lighter where light is coming from above, but we're going to have some mist rising from below here, okay? Now see, I'm transitioning this too, I didn't say. It's a little bit darker up here, a little bit lighter, and then light down here. Maybe we can go a little bit more down here. Like about like so. So hopefully you can see that a little bit. I'll make it more obvious as I add more tone up there, okay? Let's see this right here. We'll transition it. Maybe make it a little darker into the trees. And as I move down here, I'm applying a lighter touch and maybe just less coverage. Okay, and here's, let's see, let's finish this one right here. Mystic Hidden House. I'll leave that rooftop a little bit lighter. All right, now here's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add a little bit of shading right at the base of this image, okay? Same thing right here. I'm going to come out here a little bit. Just do it really lightly at first, okay? Don't be heavy-handed with it. Pretend you're, I don't know, coloring on some, I don't know, very delicate, I don't know, not quite rice paper or something like that, but just something fairly delicate. Okay. And you'll apply a nice light layer, okay? Adding a little bit of shade around the shoreline. Okay. I'm going to leave the rooftop a little bit lighter right in there. And there's not much to do down here, but you can add this shading here. You can shade some of your trees if you want to, or just leave them as is. I do have a lot of light and shadow already established in the design itself, but this is just kind of adding down some grayscale. Oh, right around our boat. Let's not forget about that. So it's like adding a little bit more shadow work. Okay, I think that should be pretty good for down here. Yeah, actually, let's add a little bit of shading. If you've stamped this up a little bit higher, you know, where you have this big gap at the bottom, just kind of fill it in with some more tone, okay? All right, let's go and start adding some more value up here. We'll darken some of our mountaintops here. Okay, so hopefully you can see that's a little bit darker than these ones over here. And it's transitioning kind of into some lighter tones. It doesn't always have to be always on the top, but just getting some of that form kind of defined by value a little bit more. Adding its kind of visual weight in here. So that top, you know, now that one's a little bit darker. And as it moves down, it's a little bit lighter gray, you know, until you get down, you know, to the base. And it's very, very light into the white of the card. First time I've done it with the pencils, like I said, I've been using watercolor pencils to give it that watercolory, washy look, you know, like ink paintings. But I think this one looks pretty good, and there's a lot of control over this too. Okay, let's see. Let's get a little bit more of a lighter gray tinge on these mountains like that. Okay. I don't have a set plan. I'm just kind of gauging it by eye. And when it looks, you know, I don't know, right, I'll stop. So I'm getting closer to, you know, a pretty decent level of darkness with this pencil. All right. And I'll do the same thing in some areas of our midground imagery. All right, and the foreground. See, doing this little, carrying that island out into the water a little bit. It kind of anchors it a little bit from a visual sense. All right, but I think that should do it about right there. Well, we can go down a little bit more if we want to, you know, with some really super light values right there. You can use if you have a gray colored pencil too, you don't have to just use black to achieve all the, you know, the different values of gray. But you could certainly do that like I'm doing here. It makes for a very minimal approach to media usage, that's for sure. Not that there's any value in that other than, you know, simplicity and, you know, in terms of what you'll need to create something. All right, so that is that right there. All right, so let's see. We're at the 25-minute mark. Not too bad. Remember, this is a half-page scene, so that's pretty big. White pigment ink, okay? And applying some of that onto our scene right at the base of our mountains and other objects in here, okay? So what you're going to want to do is take that, blot it out quite a bit, okay? Smooth out your cotton ball. It's not all frayed and everything. And you start applying it down in your light area, or if not white, and then you just kind of take it up into your objects a little bit that are going to be darker, okay? And that creates a little bit of that misty base. It reiterates what you've already established through the use of lighter applications of colored pencil, okay? You have it dark up top, a little bit, lighter, and then lighter down here where you've barely used, if you've used any of that colored pencil at all, okay? And the lighter it is, the less you're going to be able to see of this one, okay? And see over here, I'm putting it at the base of this. Remember how we wiped off some of the base of that before we went in here? That gave us a nice head start in terms of this look, okay? And I'm adding some of it right around our rocks down here. Let's add some of it up into our tree and make it look like it's kind of in the mist. See that right there? Isn't that fun? And then I'll put some over that. And let's see, let's do some of this over the top of the mountain here. Remember how I kind of stamped that out a little bit lighter on accident? I'm placing some of this in here. Now, most people, when they do this, their white pads are really, really super juicy, so they end up putting blobs of white pigment ink on their scenes. And just remember to make it more of a kind of a drier application of this pigment ink. It's a very thick ink, so you don't want to just create blobs everywhere. If you do get a little blob, you just take your clean part of your cotton ball and just wipe it off, before it really sets up. And you have plenty of time to do that. All right, so down here I'm adding this little bit in mist. Then I don't have any. Then I have a little bit more. None. So it oscillates between a little application of it and having none there. Okay. Be careful right down here. I'm going to try to put some of this white pigment ink over a part of the boat, but not over the whole thing, just so that it looks like it's in mist, and then you have the darker part for that lighter part to contrast against, okay? And I think that should do it there, okay? There's our scene. It took a lot less time this time because I'm not trying to figure things out, but here's the watercolor one right here. The watercolor one got a little bit darker, with the watercolor paints up there. But this is a very quick version right here. It's a 30-minute scene. And I'm going to go and format this. I'll put it on with this little gold border right here, and then I'll put it in this dark, glossy, matte paper, glossy cardstock, I should say. And we'll take a look at this and see what it looks like. You can mount on whatever paint, cardstock you want, or whatever you want, just to kind of frame things off. All right, we'll pause right here and we'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Okay, we have our formatted card here. It should be said, when I'm doing half-page scenes or, larger formats, I'm not really making a folded card. I guess you could, but I usually just do postcards like that. Okay, so anyways, with this minimalist type of, setting here, technique, etc., I think it pays to have a little bit of that bling around there like that gold. I think that looks really nice. So if you have anything, or just a color, you can do, a yellow or an orange or something like that, or red would kind of be fitting in here. Now, if you want to do some other types of elements, if this is just too minimal for you, one of the cards that I did, I don't know if I have it right next to me, but I added like some pink up into my trees here to make it look like blooming, springtime types of visuals in there, and that would be kind of interesting. But I think this has its own kind of charm in itself, just having this kind of real minimalistic look. Grayscale, but then you have that hot sun up there like that, just that one little spot like that. Or you could reiterate that color, here and there throughout the piece with, I don't know, other types of tones, throughout here. I don't know, you can kind of play around with it. But if you want to just stop right there, that's what I'm doing on this piece. I think it looks just fine as is. Okay, so anyways, I hope you enjoyed this quick card stamp along. And if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comments section. If you like this channel, please hit the like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.